Hi guys, my name is Helga. I'm 22 years old and I will tell you a story about my cat named Gandalf. Gandalf is not just an ordinary cat. I know for sure that he is very clever and even has a supernatural intuition. You don't believe me, do you? Well, you will. My cat prevented me from making a terrible mistake. Not long ago, I met Eric. He quickly became my new boyfriend, and as everything was getting serious, he quickly moved into my apartment, where before that I lived all by myself. Well, not totally by myself, but with Gandalf. My parents bought this apartment for me, and since I owned it, I thought that it was pretty reasonable if I let my boyfriend move in with me. I trusted Eric, but my cat, for some reason, did not. On the first day when Eric brought his stuff to my apartment, Gandalf quietly went into the hallway and lied down right in front of Eric, closing off the entrance from him. Eric looked at me inquiringly, and I jokingly stated that my cat lived here before him, so he probably needed to get along with whoever was here first. But when Eric tried to take a step forward, Gandalf hissed and slashed Eric's legs with his claws. The whole situation immediately stopped being funny. Eric was lucky he was wearing thick jeans, but the relationship between my cat and my boyfriend had gotten off to a bad start. To be fair, I have to tell you that Eric did not like animals, and I knew that, so it was not surprising that he could not get along with them. But the aggression and rejection by Gandalf were so intense. Before that, I never noticed that my cat was jealous, for example, of my friends, but this time it went beyond the limits. Somehow I managed to convince Gandalf to stop attacking my boyfriend, but this only stopped him from doing it openly. Instead, Gandalf ruined Eric's stuff all the time. My cat left traps in Eric's slippers, and Eric was terribly outraged by this, to the point that each time it was harder for me to calm him down. Gandalf stopped scratching because I cut his claws, but he still managed to hurt Eric. His favorite trick was to appear suddenly at my boyfriend's feet. In order to avoid stepping on him, Eric would stumble and even fall down, sometimes directly on the floor. And this started to really upset me, but I had no idea how to bring peace to the world of the two men I loved. And then something happened. I unexpectedly came home at a time when I was supposed to be at my parents' house. Eric did not expect me to be at home that early, and I forgot to call him. So when I entered my apartment, I saw that Eric was not alone. Yes, my boyfriend was cheating on me in my apartment with my friend Amal, who he met at my birthday party a couple of months ago. I was so shocked that I didn't even scream at them. I exploded only when I discovered that Eric had locked my Gandalf in the closet. Of course, I had a big fight with Eric, and he spat out the truth to me, that in fact, he did not love me. He loved Amal. But he wasn't in any rush to break up with the girl with her own apartment. That's me, because he didn't have the money to rent his own apartment. And Amal had no problem with this. How disgusting! And do you now see why Gandalf would not let me relax while Eric was near? My cat knew that my boyfriend was a liar.
Hi, my name is Veronica. I am 14 years old, and I always wanted to have a dog. Nothing extraordinary, right? But my father was totally against it. However, he changed his mind after one unbelievable story. So, my father forbade me to bring home any animals, although I could never understand why. We lived in our own house, and nobody in our family suffered from allergies. Before every major holiday, I hinted to my parents about what kind of gift I would like to receive. A Pomeranian puppy, cute and funny, but my parents, and especially my dad, would pretend like they didn't hear me. My dream would probably never have come true if one day I wasn't attacked by a dog. It happened not far from my house. There was a place that was being prepped for a future park, but so far it was just a small neglected field, overgrown with bushes. I often went there to take a walk, and usually it was empty. Neither people nor animals went there. But not this time. As I was slowly walking, absorbed in my own thoughts, a dog suddenly jumped out from behind the bushes and lunged at me. It was a medium-sized mongrel and looked a little bit like a sheepdog. It was dirty and angry, and it barked loudly, frightening me so much that I tried to run away. But I stumbled and fell down on the ground. I waited in horror for that mongrel to bite me, but it didn't happen. I turned around. It was very strange, but the dog did not chase me. It stopped near the place where it jumped from. The animal continued to look attentively in my direction, but at the same time, it didn't move. It was sitting on the ground and clearly was not going to attack me. I sat down on the ground too, confused and scared, but also curious. Why did the dog stop? After a little while, I tried to slowly move in its direction. At first, it just looked at me, and when I moved closer, it growled threateningly. I stopped, but from this distance, I was already able to examine it. The dog was not only a mutt, but also clearly a stray. Now, I can't explain why I didn't tell anyone about this, probably because the dog still did not attack me, which meant it was not that dangerous. And then it occurred to me that I could probably tame her. The next day, I went to the field with food and water, and the day after that, too. This didn't happen right away, but the dog eventually began to let me get closer, although it did not allow me to touch it, and it ignored the food I brought. It would only drink water from a plastic bowl. I thought the dog was just guarding its territory, but one day I heard a strange sound from the bushes. Oh, I of course decided that there had to be puppies. Slowly and carefully, so as not to anger the dog, I looked behind the branches and saw, oh God, it was awful. There was another dog there, injured and possibly dying. It looked as if the second dog had run into something sharp. The wound was too deep and inflamed already. I didn't know how long the injured dog had been lying there, but now it was so weak that it couldn't even lift its head and look at me. This meant that the first dog was not defending his territory, but its friend. There was no time to waste, and I called my father to urgently come meet me there. And my dad, in turn, called the vet. When he learned about everything that had happened, he suddenly told the doctors that he didn't want them to take both dogs to the shelter after they were done, that we would take them as soon as they were both healthy and vaccinated. Can you imagine? Both dogs! Yes, neither one nor the other was anything like a cute Pomeranian I envisioned, but I was completely happy, especially because my dad said that he was proud of me.
Hey, my name is Andre, and I'm 16 years old. Before starting my story, I'd like to ask, do you like your pets? My words might surprise you, but I literally hate my pet. Okay, this is really more my father's pet than mine, but I still have to take care of him. My story will be about a cockatoo parrot named Pirate. My father had a dream. All his life he wanted a large parrot, preferably a macaw. But when Dad found out how much money keeping a creature like that would cost him, he opted for a cockatoo. And even for such an average-sized bird, my father had to free a whole room in our house. When I realized that Pirate would live next door to me, separated only by a thin wall between our rooms, I immediately understood that we wouldn't be friends. On top of that, Pirate had a completely unbearable character. Cockatoos are really very intelligent, and this is their main problem, because at the same time, they are completely uncontrollable. Every morning, Pirate woke me up with his obnoxious squawks, and it was completely impossible to train him to be silent. And when Pirate was allowed to be outside of his room, he literally destroyed everything he could reach. But no matter how much I complained that the parrot was making my life unbearable, my dad remained cold. And sometimes I thought that he loved Pirate more than he loved me. Dad tried to teach Pirate to talk, realizing that he was much smarter than he tried to act. But Pirate completely ignored my dad's lessons. The parrot was able to speak. He easily repeated certain words, but only those that he himself wanted to memorize. and his choice of words was completely unpredictable. Oh, if only I could have foreseen this. Because of Pirate, my parents almost never left home for a long time. Cockatoos require a lot of attention and time, and you can't just leave this creature all alone. But my parents were so tired that they finally decided to spend a whole weekend at the lake. And apparently, this meant that I had to babysit Pirate. I didn't have the opportunity to refuse, but I didn't try to get out of it either. You see, my parents finally left me alone, so I couldn't miss the opportunity to invite my friends over and have a small party. Well, maybe not quite small. My plan was to lock Pirate in his room, leave food for him, and forget about his existence until the next morning. However, my friends had other plans. Everyone knew that I had a cockatoo, and everyone wanted to see him. So, I was forced to let the parrot out of the room. Girls took selfies with Pirate, noticing with great pleasure how charming he was and how good he looked in front of the camera. And the guys tried to talk to Pirate and teach him more interesting words and expressions. I knew that Pirate wasn't interested in learning new words, so I wasn't afraid that he would remember anything or repeat it. In general, my parrot had become the real star of the party. But it wasn't enough for this damn bird. When my parents came back home, Pirate unexpectedly started talking. "Let's party!" the bird chanted to my parents, who, naturally, didn't give me permission to invite friends over. And this was only the beginning. Then the parrot repeated all the words and phrases that my friends taught him, pronouncing them with different voices. And honestly, he couldn't have heard any of these on TV. So now, I stay locked in my room more than Pirate does in his.